To the Kent Lapp Podcast.
It was understood that you were going to vote as a Republican, as a Mormon,
Really?
growing up, pretty much. I mean, you were not supposed, it wasn't supposed to be official, but sometimes it even kind of was, but I think of people who are right now, if you're a religious person, if you really want to be a good person who's serving the Lord, if you will, then who are you supposed to vote for? Mm-hmm. Who are you supposed to look around and go, and there's a default right now for a lot of people to vote Republican. And I think there's some reasons that kind of make sense for that. But for the most part, what a sad state of affairs for those people.
Yeah.
This isn't a good person I'm voting for. This isn't a servant of the Lord I'm voting for right now. And I just feel like there are so many people who want to do good. Like I said, I think of my Mormons what it must feel like to be told you're a Latter-day Saint whose soul is saved for these times, these tumultuous times, because you were going to help, or just to be someone who is like wanting to be a steward of the earth or whatever, and your choices right now suck,
right?
And so I was like, I want to be a Republican, and just. Whatever that even means to be, I'm going to identify as a Republican. I'll be a trans Republican.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is to help the Republicans from the inside. I don't think I can help the Democrats. They're not savable because anyone who tries to speak the truth is just going to get burned at the stake. Whereas Republicans love truth. That's why they like Trump. It's because he says just enough truth. Now, he says a million other lies, but there's just enough truth in there that you're like, finally, someone is saying something that smacks of truth to me.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas these Democrats are all robots. They are just parroting this stuff. And even when they sound genuine, the next debate comes by and someone has given them a script.
Right. Yep.
And so that is so disgusting to us that we're like, yeah, we would rather have someone who at least sometimes says. So I'm like, well, if Trump could get there with just a little bit of truth and that much hatred and fear and a little bit of a sense of humor, what if we have a sense of humor and all the truth that we can get our hands on and are good and just want love and together, we want to love each other and have American pride again.
Yes.
That's the thing. The Democrats won't even have America. It's anathema to them. It's against their religion to love America. And that is something that I just can't, that it's not.
Any ideas why that is? Because I picked up on that too, and I'm not sure that I understand why that is. How did America sort of get lumped in with the right-wing conservatism a little bit?
Well, okay, because for one thing, Democrats are so cosmopolitan that anything that's kind of like America first, or we want to keep jobs here or anything. So many people were fooled into thinking like, oh, that's either racist or you just don't. Why would you care about the people in your own country more than, say, a random person in Ethiopia, who I also don't do anything for, by the way? And it's like, well, because you're not actually going to do anything for the Ethiopians, but you might do something for your neighbor, And like, so if those people can take care of each other, whatever, but we can have it. It doesn't have to be America first. Fuck everybody else. Let's ruin them.
Exactly.
But it can be like, well, this is our nation, our tribe. And by the way, having pride as American is that was the whole plan with the founding, so that disparate peoples could work together as a nation. We could go, we might wind up being different religions and races and all kinds of stuff, but instead of an ethnic identity binding us together, instead of a religious identity binding us together, the idea of America is going to bind us together.
Right.
This is the flag that we're all going to be, so that we can be a diverse nation where we can all love each other because you are American, I am an American, and that is the idea. That is the whole thing.
That is the idea, but somehow we've allowed this idea that we're going to allow America to bind us together to be an ethnic issue, or to to speak to other identities. That's what we need to work against. That's what we need to fix.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I would rather go into the Republican Party and remind them that we are all brothers and sisters, and that's what it means.
Okay.
That's what, and by the way, if you're a Christian, that's what it means. But if you're just an American, like this, we love each other, and it doesn't matter what how different anybody else is in any way. This is our tribe.
Yes.
And I can't get the Democrats to realize that it's through identifying as American, it's through loving our country that we can love each other, that's the way to love each other, so that we do have something that binds us together, so that we're all on the same team. Yep. We can't get them to understand that you have to be on the same team to love each other. They just...
Okay. Do you also think the Democrats are sort of, I hate to say anti-America, although sometimes it seems like they are a little bit, or they're scared of, they shy away from the patriotism stuff, which again, it can get overdone, right? People can get over patriotic and gets a little bit weird. Do you think they shy away from that because they can't get past some of the times that America has messed things up in its history, like slavery obviously being one of the biggest ones, right?
Right.
We should have never done that.
Of course. But I mean, you're looking through every nation, and I mean, they all have committed atrocities. I mean, back in the day, that was just what it was. It was a dog-eat-dog world, and the moralities were different because that was the norm. We were all taking over land and killing each other and whatever. Now we've all started, now everyone reads, and we've all thought about things. We have philosophers, and people are going, oh, okay, maybe we could stop killing each other and we could learn how to live in more harmony, but at the time that just wasn't a thing. And so, yeah, I can forgive America of our sins just the way, I mean, it's just like, it's a myopic understanding of world history. A lot of people think that America, it's like they think that they were the only people who ever had slaves. It's like, well, right. Or the only people who ever killed each other. There's, by the way, it was like 30,000 years ago, some like Mongolians came over the land bridge and got here. And then 11,000 years ago, the people who we now think of as Native Americans killed them or intermarried. And there's people were just moving around and killing each other and intermarrying and mixing. And that was just what it was. It's just that the Europeans happened to be at a time in history. They were the ones who got the boats and the guns and, but these are accidents of history, and all kinds of people would have done all kinds of things. And it's just, and not just accidents, but it has to do with the strength of the religions that were powerful tools to bind people together into these. I mean, but this is just, it's like, what are we supposed to blame people for acting out their natural human instincts in the past? It doesn't matter. And they, by the way, did some amazing things in the terms of world history to change the way governments are run. So we can be proud of that stuff. And like, there's so much to be genuinely proud about. Even Thanksgiving, there was a version of it that did go that well. There's atrocities, but there's also an actual times when the American natives were helping the sailors get there and be like, this is how you plant the crops. And then they were so grateful the first year that the crops did come in, and they actually did have that together.
Yes.
I mean, now you're supposed to just not believe any of it. Whereas, and I was listening to like an American Native person's podcast the other day, like on Thanksgiving, where she was talking about that and like giving history lessons about it all. So it's like, it's not just some white person's book that I read,
Yeah. And by the way, real quick on that, is that podcast on Native American history? Because if so, I'm curious what it's called.
It's actually a lot about food. It's called Twisted Sister. And it's about like, cuisine. And I'm really into food. So I thought.
Because I've been trying to have someone on the podcast to like go deep into Native American history, so I didn't know if that podcast was about that. All right, so you at this point you see more hope for the Republican Party than you do for the Democratic Party, or do you just align more naturally with the Republican Party than you do the Democratic Party?
I don't really know who I align more with. I just see more hope for Republicans. I think there's so many people on Team Red who do hunger and thirst after truth, for one. So I think I can speak to them because I won't get canceled by the right.
Okay.
The left will, I'll say one true thing and they'll cut my feet off, So I think that they hunger after truth. There's a lot of people who, like I said, who are deeply religious and want to serve the Lord, serve the common good, make the world a better place. And I think I can speak to those people. Like that's a clear, they have like kind of ideas about moralities that are broader than the average liberal person's ideas are basically like, can I see a direct harm to someone else? If it's not one step, like not obviously immediately me hurting someone else, then it must be morally okay. But they're not ever thinking about the bigger picture of like, well, what is the effect on society of that?
Right.
What are the kind of consequences, outgrowth? What does that do to you if you watch that much porn? And then what does that do to everyone else? I mean, so that's how I see it. Like, I just don't, they're postmodern on the left side, or they're children who don't understand anything. And the children, used to be, you would be in your early 20s and you would be an idealist and you would have all these ideas, but you would be listening to older people enough of the time, and eventually would kind of, but now they're just raising each other on TikTok.
It's true.
And so they're not getting it. And then they're getting, and Tumblr and they spread their ideas, and their ideas are spreading amongst each other. and they're not listening to enough real adults to make their ideas better. And in fact, once the real adults start saying anything that hurts their feelings, I mean, this is a little bit of it, overgeneralizing, but this happens a lot. Their feelings get hurt. They cancel them. They call for their heads. Someone writes an op-ed article, and now they're unsafe at the New York Times or what. I mean, it's just insanity, and it's children, and no one is. I mean, these are spoiled. This is an empire of spoiled children. But I think on the right, there's a lot of people who aren't that spoiled. They might have some different ideas than me about whatever. Yep. But there's not this kind of like attitude of. And there's so many people on the left where I'm like, especially once they're a little bit socialist or they have ideas about. What should be funded or not, or who should lose their job if they won't do this or that. And it's like, you're not willing to do the work. Okay. Do you know how your vegan ice cream gets to the store? Do you know, like, people have to do the jobs?
Yes.
And I think that is lost to so many people on the left. And they think they know how to hold the clipboards and tell people, how we're going to run the society. They have no clue about any of the billion people. And I barely have a clue, but I just know how much I don't know.
Right.
You know? And so I just feel a deep gratitude to people who are working 60 hours a week as truckers, or who are starting businesses that are doing things like I have a gratitude to this American economy. I love the vegan ice cream. I love that vegan ice cream right now is $4 for chocolate peanut butter cookie dough. Yep. That wasn't the case a few years ago. We live in this amazing. I look at all the flavors of kombucha that you can buy on the way to your protest.
Yep.
And
Praise God for that.
Right. I do love this country. I would like there to be a bigger safety net. I think I could eventually talk Republicans into being like, well, look, we could work together. I think it's crazy. So here's something for Republicans. Look, I don't want anyone's, like, I get it if you have a job and you want to be taken away and you don't want to hear that your oil job, I think we can still figure out how to transition eventually to better, cleaner stuff, but like try to help people like be able to, look, trans people are going to kill themselves if they don't get to transition, but you want this guy to lose his job where he makes $100,000 and has 4 kids. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to kill himself. Right. Okay. Like, let's be a little empathetic. But at the same time, you go into red establishment, you're in the country or you're in North Austin or something, you're at a bar, and they put in 2 straws as a default into your cup. Now, come on. Can we just ask if someone wants a straw? It's the kind of thing where you're like, what, are you being antagonistic toward even saving the earth? Right. Like, you're being demonstrative, you're being childish. There's so many things like that on the right where I'm like, let's clean up. Look, if we're the team of the good Christians or whatever your kind of moral system is, if you are like, you have this idea like that you're better, like we're the adults in the room, we're mature, we're good moral people, and as opposed to those atheist, hedonist, whatever, then let's be good.